Remember those kids growing up who refused to eat anything besides plain pasta with butter and maybe a little parm? Well, they were on to something. So today we're making that, but like way better.
Oh my god.
Welcome. So the concept of pasta with butter goes back way before childhood picky eaters. And legend has it that the original fettuccine alfredo was just butter and parm. But in light of the lack of ingredients here, we're going to spend a little extra attention to detail on the techniques to really level everything up a bit to give us something that's greater than the sum of its parts. So instead of just whacking some butter over cooked pasta, we're going to start off with browned butter. And browning the butter is going to give us a really nutty depth that's going to really take this whole thing to a way more elevated and cozy place. It's also going to make your entire house smell incredible, like the holidays or something. All you're going to do is take a stick of butter and melt it over a medium to medium-low heat, but the real key here is to keep everything moving with a whisk. That'll prevent the solids and proteins from burning at the bottom too prematurely. Also, to make this easier, I'd recommend using a stainless steel or maybe a Dutch oven or white ceramic. That way you can see how the color is developing under the contrast of the lighter pan. And since this is essentially the main ingredient, I opted for something a little more fancy with better flavor than your regular everyday butter, but feel free to use what you got. So it'll start bubbling after 2 minutes or so. Then once it stops bubbling, you know you're reaching that caramel looking color. Then you're going to kill the heat and keep whisking it until it's nice and golden brown. The color change is going to happen super quick though, so you really want to keep an eye on it. Then get it into a separate container to stop the cooking. It should be nice and golden in color and have those little brown bits that are pure flavor, so please do not strain them. Now this is optional, but I'm gonna get this whole thing into a fridge overnight, which is gonna help us get that restaurant silky vibe, but more about that later, because right now we're gonna talk pasta. Today I'm using a shape of pasta I found at a local Italian market called Casarice. Based on the shape, it's gonna be perfect to really catch the sauce in all the nooks and crannies. And it says here on the bag that it was shaped using bronze dies, which kind of leave a rougher and more porous surface that help the sauce cling to it. Feel free though to use any shape that you want, but really try and opt for ones that the sauce can have an opportunity to cling to. The secondary benefit of the bronze extruded pastas is that they shed more starch into the water, which is going to help us thicken the sauce and get it nice and silky. Another note there is that I'm using the least amount of pasta water as I can so that we can really concentrate that starch. And that's something I recommend doing in any dish where you're going to be using pasta water, because in restaurants they pass so much pasta through the same water that it carries a way higher starch concentration. That's sort of one of the reasons why pasta sauces are so much better in restaurants than at home. Alright, so now that our brown butter has set up in the fridge, we're gonna take it out. And this is looking pretty perfect. All the brown bits have kind of solidified onto the bottom, but what we're going to try to do here is actually take it out and slice it into portions. And the reason that we chilled the butter is because the slow melting effect once it hits the pan is going to emulsify with the pasta water and parm into the sauce a bit better than the hot liquefied butter. Not a pivotal step, but if you have the time, it's worth it. And you can freeze the rest and have brown butter on demand. Also, feel free to check out my deep dive video on how to freeze things properly. Alright, then the last step before assembly time is to pre-shave our parm. That way we can control the amount more quickly once things get going, because once it's all in the pan, it happens super fast. And you can pretty much tell by just looking at the water here that it's nice and concentrated with starch, and it's almost kind of thick and bubbling. So we want to take our pasta out just shy of al dente, or where we'd usually stop, because we want it to have an opportunity to continue cooking in the pan with the sauce. And that right there is just about perfect. So we're going to shove our pasta to the back burner, bring in our stainless steel pan from before, and we're just going to bring it directly in. There's no need to strain it because whatever water comes with it is the more the merrier, and we don't want to risk accidentally putting our perfectly starchy pasta water straight down the drain. I may or may not have learned that the hard way. Alright, it's assembly time. But real quick, if you guys have been digging the background music, I write and produce all of it myself, and it's available on streaming platforms under the artist name Jandre FM. And you can download the files for free on my Patreon. No sign up required. My channel isn't big enough for sponsors yet, but on Patreon, I'll be posting additional videos, recipes, music, and behind the scenes. So please consider supporting my content with a paid membership. I'll leave a link down below. Alright, so we got our heat on medium-high here, and we're just going to throw in a couple knobs of our brown butter. And the key here is to keep things moving at all times. And I'm using a little silicone spatula here to help scrape the bottom, throwing in a couple more knobs of butter as needed. As always, the full recipe is in the link down below. Then, once everything's nice and coated, we're going to get a couple generous spoonfuls of our pasta water in. Feel free to add more as necessary. We want this to be really nice and silky and saucy. By the end, it's kind of somewhere in between a carbonara and a mac and cheese. So next, we're just going to add a generous handful of our parm here. And now the aroma of the brown butter and the sharpness of the cheese is really coming through. And my patience is running a bit thin here. I'm looking to get this in my belly ASAP. Lastly, a couple optional finishing moves. I'm getting some Calabrian chili flakes in here. Feel free to just use red pepper flakes and some cracked black pepper. And at this stage, you want to kill the heat and keep the pasta moving for 1 or 2 more minutes. The constant stirring and flipping is physically forcing the fat into the starchy water and emulsifying everything, making it creamier and creamier. Sort of like shaking or whisking balsamic vinegar into olive oil to make a vinaigrette. And if you notice that the sauce starts to break at any point, add a touch more pasta water and just kick the heat back on momentarily. It should come back together. And something about the consistency here and the shape kind of reminds me of like a Kraft macaroni and cheese, but like a Michelin star version. And drop a comment down below letting me know what kind of pasta dishes that you guys want to see or just dishes in general. Alright, look at that. And in true kid-like form here, I'm just going to get a bunch of parm right on the top here. And there it is, a brown buttered pasta, a silky and smooth, cheesy emulsified sauce. Alright, let's see how it is. Oh my god. The brown butter really does take it to the next level, but at the end of the day, if you don't feel like spending the effort, throw a couple knobs of fresh butter in there, some pasta water, and call it a day. I won't judge you. Alright, we did it. Give a like, subscribe. Till next time, I'll see you guys later.